Welcome back to Marvel's Avengers. In this video we are going through how I believe you should be building up your characters so that they are performing better and you're not dying as much, because I'm currently playing the game on normal difficulty and I'm still dying quite a bit because I wasn't focused too much on the ratings, the perks and the skills and everything. There's a lot of depth to these characters. I do have all 6 characters unlocked. You can unlock those just by campaign progression. And the gameplay in the background you will see is when I first started speccing into specific things with Hulk. You can see that a lot of enemies I'm 2-tapping. I've got a lot of health, so I'm staying alive a lot longer. But if we take a look at my 6 characters now, switching over from the gameplay of Hulk. Miss Marvel I've got is 8 power at the moment, level 5. Iron Man is power 17, level 8. Black Widow is 11. Captain America's 11. Then Thor is 10. When you do unlock these final 3 characters, they will start at power level 10. So I haven't actually played a lot with them. Also, one thing I've just noticed recently is when you are playing the campaign, let's just say you've leveled up Hulk, Iron Man, Miss Marvel and Captain America. If you want to play one of your drop zone missions or something with Hulk, you can actually press R and request a companion. Another good thing about this game I noticed is I was doing a harm training challenge and I noticed one of my daily or weekly challenges pop up as completed for factions or something, and I didn't even use the thing that was required to complete the challenge. So the AI can actually help you out with challenges and stuff, which is pretty cool. But what we're going to do in this video is I will go through ways I believe you should build up all the different characters. But remember, this is based on my playstyle. You might have a completely different way you want to play. So I'm just going to explain how it all works, give out my recommendations, and then maybe we can all discuss it in the comments and stuff. So if we take a look at Hulk, because I've got him level 20, power 45. I do believe the level goes up to 50, and I'm not sure on the power cap at the moment. I've seen characters like 135 plus. So if we click on Hulk and we go into the character menu, if we start off with the skills, you have combat, you have 3 different tabs. You've got primary, specialty and mastery. Then if we have a look, you've got combat, heavy attack, grab attacks, rage. In the specialty tab you've got support heroic, assault heroic, ultimate heroic and movement abilities. And then in mastery you've got melee, ranged, intrinsic ability, intrinsic overcharge. So each time you level up your character, you're going to unlock a skill point, and you can use that skill point on these skills in these trees. But bear in mind, things like the mastery ones will not become available until your hero is level 15. But taking a look at the primary, you can spec into combat, heavy attacks. You can do all these different things separately, and as you can see, I've got quite a few of them unlocked, so you can build into multiple different things. I've completely maxed out the rage because I use rage quite a lot. As when you're using rage, it's Q on keyboard when you're playing on PC. When you're hitting enemies whilst you're raged, you're going to get health back. And as I said, I've been dying a lot. I'm playing the campaign on normal. Once I've gone through the campaign, I'm currently playing all the drop zones and stuff on challenge 2. But once I get into the end game area of the game, I will boost it up to, I'm hoping to go to challenge 4. Although I'm not fully confident at challenge 2 yet. So I'll build my way up and I will eventually get to challenge 4. But these are different things you do. So if we hover over this, you can see attacking enemies and receiving damage fuels an intrinsic rage meter. When it's active, defensive strength is increased, and all attacks inflict increased damage by 15% and they recover health or willpower. And then if we have a look at something like this, increases your willpower recovery while rage is active by 100%. So I get double the health back whilst I'm using rage. So there's a lot of different things you can do. There's heavy attacks and stuff, like you can go into here and you've got ground shaker, so you can basically belly flop with the Hulk. That's quite cool. There's different moves and stuff, so the combat isn't just spam, spam, spam. Like you press F whilst you're sprinting to do that, and then there's somewhere you left mouse 3 times and then press F to do a combo. There's different things around that. Then if you take a look at his gear, I've got minor artifacts, I've got a major, which is unlocked through story progression as well. Then I've got my normal gear loadout. One thing to bear in mind with this is you will see at the bottom of the box that's popped up for these lightweight protection nanites, you will see that it says max power 10 out of 10. When you get an item that's green, you will have 3 power levels you can increase them by. A blue item is 5, purple and legendary, so the yellow ones that you see here, they can be increased by 10. You will also notice that this gear perk, there are 2. I've got lightweight protection and plasma ignition. On this one, Proficient, Protection and Gamma Synapse Booster. Then there will be no perks available on the green. The blue might have 1. Legendary can even have 3. All you need to do to unlock these, because when you first get a piece of gear, it will only have 1 unlocked. If you boost up its power using resources, I don't think I've actually got anything that's not... Okay, there we go. Resource requirement, nanites and what's that yellow stuff? Catalysts. So I would need to use catalysts and nanites to increase this power, but you'll see it says next boost 46 power. So I can boost the power level of these bio cells from 45 up to 55, but make sure you're not just spamming the upgrades whenever you have the resources, because for an example, if I was to take these legendary bio cells and boost them up to 55, I've put 10 levels of boosting into these purples, and there's nothing you can do for gear besides put it into an inventory locker for storage and later use, or you can dismantle it. I don't think you can sell anything at the vendors, I'm pretty sure you can just buy gear. And when you dismantle a piece of gear, you pretty much get no resources back. So make sure when you're powering stuff you have plenty of resources available, and make sure you're 100% certain that that's the piece you want. Because a lot of times I had like 30 power pieces of gear, I would go into a mission and I had just put them up from like 25 to 30 on a blue piece. I'd go into literally the next mission, having increased my power, so that level or that mission is going to have a higher power rating. I get a drop and it's already 32. So that piece I've just spent resources on boosting up 5 times is irrelevant. So I would do a few pieces if there are missions that require a little bit more power. For an example, Hulk's iconic mission, the bit you saw gameplay of at the start of the video, that is power level 40 required. So boost up to get to 40, but I wouldn't do it too often. I'd save your resources until you get closer to the end game, because they are fairly expensive. Because there's 10 levels, that's going to use 80 catalysts, and you don't find them too often. Like you can if you're like roaming around and actually exploring missions, then you can find them in quite big numbers, but you're not going to get drastic amounts. So make sure you're careful when you're powering up your stuff, but you will get different perks. And you can see they have a perk rating, so the gear perks on this piece is 4-star, then it's 5-star on this. And they always have different things. So, for example on this, 20.8% chance ranged power attacks grant a defense buff, requires ranged power attack ability. Then you've got the gamma booster, small debris attacks deal gamma damage. Projectiles are infused with excess gamma radiation. So basically, if I aim with Hulk and I use his ranged ability and I pick up debris off the ground and throw it at an enemy, it will have gamma damage included. Like, it'll look like there's acid coming off this piece of debris. You throw it and it's going to deal extra damage in terms of gamma damage. So that is pretty cool. But that's all of the gear. You've got a major artifact which is going to give you different perks and stuff, and that uses the polychoron, which is a very, very rare resource to come by. Although I would recommend doing the faction challenges, they give you a lot of it. But this will boost your power up just by 1 level. And you can see increased duration of all damage buffs by 4 seconds when I do the next boost and unlock that perk. Then boost to unlock, press left shift and middle mouse button simultaneously to activate a damage boost. Then I've obviously got the 5.3% increased crit chance when the damage boost is active. So I'm not actually getting any benefit from this at the moment. I need to unlock that boost. But then that's going to help me out as well. And each boost, 9 levels of it, will give me an extra power level. So just for having this equipped, and this one, the major artifact carries over to all characters, this will give me plus 10 power on every single character. Then you have your minor artifacts, Prismatic ISO 8, Spin Resistance, so 50% reduction in heroic energy drained and 25% reduction in damage from spin attacks. Then I've got a shock resistant one with Heavyweight Boon, so I'm getting damage reduction from shock damage attacks and increased crit chance for a heavy combo finisher. You can also power all of these up as well. Then moving up to the most important part, and that's the ratings. This is what I've discovered to be the most helpful thing when you are building your characters. You will see the melee rating is 651, over double my ranged rating, because you need to figure out what sort of a playstyle you're going for with your characters. So Iron Man, are you going to be flying around and using projectiles, repulsors, rockets, lasers and stuff like that? Or are you going to be on the ground punching the shit out of enemies? With the Hulk, I don't really use his ranged too much, although I am using melee all of the time. So I've put gear on that's going to benefit my melee rating. So looking at the melee rating of my Hulk, 651, I want Hulk to be an absolute tank that can output a lot of melee damage. So I'm going to boost his defense rating and his melee. I'm not going to worry too much about his heroic or his ranged, although that will build up with the gear as well. But I was dying a hell of a lot in the game, and ever since I've started focusing more, I would recommend going for 1 or 2 ratings. You can just try and fully spec into 1. It depends on your gear and stuff and the perks and everything that's related to the gear, so there's a lot of depth to it, and you're not always going to get the pieces that you want for your gear loadout. But with this rating, ever since I've started doing this, I'm not dying anywhere near as much because I'm outputting so much more damage. Enemies are dying in like 2 hits depending on the enemy type, and it actually makes the game a lot more fun because you're more powerful. You're not just a standard character that doesn't know what you're spec'd into, and like they basically have an identity crisis. If you're not spec'ing into melee, Hulk's going to be like, oh, do I want to be ranged, do I want to be melee? He's not going to know. So just try and focus on 1 or 2 of these ratings. And melee, for an example, I've got 25 might through my gear pieces, 610 melee damage, 1.5% ultimate heroic charge rate, 10 Valor for 406 heroic effectiveness, and I've got 165% crit damage. Then my proficiency, I would like to boost this a little bit more, but it's currently 9, giving me a 10.5% crit chance and a 6.9% perk chance. Then if you move over to the ranged, which isn't important on the Hulk, but he's got 289 ranged damage. That's obviously boosted up when he's picking up debris and getting the gamma damage from the enhancer. The Valor comes into play again with the proficiency, although for the precision part of it and the range damage, you get assault heroic charge rate. With heroic, you've got armor and support heroic charge rate through resilience, which I don't have any of. Then you've got Valor being 10 for me, and 0 intensity, so his status resistance and stun and status meter damage isn't too high. Then looking at his defense, and I need to build this up a bit more, because you can see this is actually in between the ranged and heroic, and I want it to be a little bit above both. So I need to be lucky enough to find gear that's going to benefit the defense rating without knocking down the melee too much. But there's 0 resilience, so just like base 1% armor. But the resolve is 9, so my willpower recovery effectiveness is 27%, and then with my skills, so rage is going to double the amount of willpower I'm getting back. That's helpful as well. My max willpower or my health with Hulk is 5,169. So if I can get that above like 450 and still have a high melee rating, I could possibly have like 7 or 8,000 health, and Hulk is going to be the tank I want him to be. But I've only just figured all this stuff out recently myself. But now that I have, when we do get to like the higher power levels and stuff in the game, you can see much more optimized builds that are focused on one thing instead of having an identity crisis. So there is a lot of depth to this game. I would recommend focusing mainly on your ratings because they're going to make you stronger, more health, better damage output. But at the same time as focusing on your ratings, you also need to pay attention to your skills, your gear, like your loadout for your gear, your perks, your artifacts, major and minor. But you would have seen from the gameplay just how powerful, like how much more powerful my Hulk was looking from the early stages of the game. And I might even be up, like increasing my difficulty way before I planned to, because I've finally figured this stuff out. The only thing I need to do now is just hope and pray I can find legendaries that are actually going to benefit my build, because if you look at the melee rating there, currently 651, if I equip that and that's maxed out on power, that takes 15% of my melee rating away. Then if you have a look at this, I do get 12% extra ranged, which you don't want from Hulk. I lose 38% from my heroic and 1% of my melee rating. So those pieces are just sitting there because they're legendary at the moment, but as I get more and like more pieces of gear and higher power, these will be dismantled. But then as I said, you don't get a lot of resources back at all. So focus on your rating, your gear, your perks, your skills, your artifacts. And make sure you're not boosting the power up for too much stuff, because you're going to be losing a lot of resources. And as I said, you have to grind and go around and do free roam parts during main missions and stuff to get those resources back. Or do all of your challenges on the challenge card so that you can get some resource bundles and stuff. So with the Hulk, I'd recommend, like my personal playstyle for him would be defense and melee. Then if we back out of the Hulk and we go into Miss Marvel. For Miss Marvel, she's only power 8 and all of my other characters are very low. So my main focus with Miss Marvel, I'm not a fan of her ranged powers. I don't like holding down my aim button, throwing punches at enemies. It doesn't feel as good as getting involved in the fight a lot more and using melee, because she's a very strong, agile character. So ranged is out of the picture for me with Miss Marvel. I'm going to focus on melee as I build her up. And then I might go with heroic, because the number one power, like when you're playing PC, number one on the keyboard, that actually boosts the willpower of all of your allies. So instead of defense and making her really strong, I might take full advantage of her abilities because they are quite cool. So for me personally, Miss Marvel's probably going to be melee and heroic. And remember, if you guys have a different playstyle, let me know in the comments. But moving on, we have Iron Man. I'm not a fan of Iron Man's ground play. I much prefer having him up in the air. So what I'm going to do for Iron Man is focus on his ranged, 100% boosting his ranged. And then because if you spec into defense, you're going to be stronger, but I wouldn't necessarily go with strength for Iron Man. As I said, these will probably all build up gradually over time by themselves, but you're just trying to spec into one to make that stand out more, or spec into two. So I'd go with ranged 100% and heroic probably secondary because you've got the Hulk Buster, so you can use some form of melee, but you'll have a lot more protection. And then your uni beam will be stronger and it'll last longer and stuff, and I would definitely go ranged and heroic with Iron Man. And then down to Thor. I've not had much playtime at all with Thor at the moment, but I do like his melee over throwing his hammer. So I'm probably going to go melee and defense, maybe? I've not used too much of his abilities at the moment. I mean, look at that heroic rating. 441 compared to like 140s and stuff. So he's got decent heroic effectiveness and armor and stuff at the moment. He's a very, very low power. But yeah, I might stick with heroic then, because the game's already put that there. If I quickly equip that, because a major artifact can be used across all characters, I might stick with heroic and not knock that down too much, and then just focus on his melee as well. So melee and heroic for Thor. Then if we jump out and we go into good old Captain America, and we go into his menu. I mean, I've not played too much with him either, but again, I'm not a fan of throwing the shield, so I'm probably going to go melee, and then I might go defense and make Captain America a tanky melee character. I mean, you could even go defense and heroic, so you're just utilizing your heroic abilities whilst being strong as shit. But I do want, like, for my personal playstyle, I like dealing damage with actual, like, combat, so melee and ranged. So I'm probably going to go melee and then defense with Captain America as well. I've not used too much of his abilities. I'll obviously check them out and then I might change my mind at a later time. But so far it's melee and defense. And then Black Widow. I do like her melee combat, but she's got dual-wield pistols and they're pretty good. So I might eventually start speccing her into ranged for her pistols, and then it would be her heroic, because from what I've seen, using her as a companion in missions, when she uses one of her abilities called Veil of Shadows, she actually makes you invisible as well. It doesn't last too long, but if you spec into heroic, it might benefit the team a little bit more because it's every ally around her she will make invisible. So it might have to be ranged and heroic with Black Widow. I'm not entirely sure yet. I've not had much playtime with any of the characters besides I've been maining Hulk because I just fucking love him. He's a great character to use. And personally, I think he's possibly got the best looking outfits in the game. Not really a fan of the others. I do like a couple for Iron Man, and there might be one or two I like for the other characters. But I think, for my personal opinion, Hulk has the best looking outfits. So, that was a video on how to, like, basically spec into a couple of different things to get the most out of your characters and make them powerful. And I can tell you now, even though I'm nowhere near the end, I'm only level 20 power 45 with Hulk, he's feeling so much stronger since I spec'd into his melee rating, because it was actually one point where his range was higher than his melee, and I was still using him as a melee character. So I was not dealing damage, I was dying a lot, but now that I've spec'd into his melee, and it's overtaken ranged by a lot, he is feeling so much more powerful. But on that note, that's going to do it for the video. Remember, let me know your personal playstyles and stuff, and any more tips you can add to this, let me know in the comments. I will see you in the next Avengers video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, I hope it helped you out. Thank you for watching.